Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. Or if you're new, my name is Janelle and I like making lifestyle vlogs, so just anything relating to like my life, so productivity, morning routines, some teaching vlogs, some travel vlogs, just anything and everything that I want to film. Today I'm gonna do a clean with me slash 8 things that you should think about as a first year teacher. Since it's the beginning of the school year, a lot of teachers are going back to work, a lot of new teachers are entering being a new teacher this year, even if you're not a first year teacher. These are just the 8 things that I can think of. The tips that I'm about to tell you are kind of different from what I've already mentioned in previous teaching tips, and usually in my teaching tips type of style videos, I do sit down and tell you the tips, but I'm gonna be cleaning and then while I'm doing laundry or taking a break from cleaning something, I'm gonna stop and give you a tip. All the tips that I'm about to say are just based on my experiences and what I've learned and what works for me, so you don't have to, obviously, you don't have to listen to any of these tips. I'm just giving these tips for somebody who might need it, especially if you are a first year teacher. The first tip from my notes that I thought of earlier is to think about the first week of school. So you just graduated from your teaching program and they teach you, how to lesson plan, all that stuff, but no one really tells you what to do on the first week of school or the first day of school. You really need to think about routines that you want your students to get used to, and you have to set those expectations the first few weeks of school. Now, when I tell you, you need to think about the first week of school, even the first day of school, think about how do you want your students to walk into your class, okay? Where do you want your students to hang their stuff, or where do you want them to go right when they come in? For example, in the first day of school, we practice how to walk into the gym. I'm a PE teacher, by the way, if you don't know. I am an elementary PE teacher and this is my 4th year. Anyways, back to the example. First thing that I like to do on the first day, and practice it first week if you need to, first week, second week, and maybe third week if students forget, is how to walk inside the gym. Do you want your students to go crazy and just run around when they come into the gym or in your classroom? Do you want them to walk quietly and go to a specific spot? You have to set those expectations and practice those routines. So that's what I do on the first day. I show them how to walk into the gym, and then usually they don't have their spots yet, so I have them line up in a colored line. I'll just let them know like where to line up, and then I'll give them their own spots. That way, every time they go to PE, they have a specific spot to go to. If students are not walking into your class or they're not doing what you want them to do, have them do it again, okay? Keep practicing until they get it right. And maybe it's been a week or 2 and they forgot and they come in running around being like, I don't know, like a wild animal. I'm like, oh, no. Go back outside and try that again. So you need to really think about what you want to do on that first day, that first week, because that is very important. Once you have those set and you have your routines that you want, your rules, whatever, and you practice those routines, then your year will go a little bit more smooth, okay? Classroom management will be a little bit better, especially if you have specific things on what you want your students to do, for even the little things, like when do you want your students to sharpen their pencil, okay? Obviously, you don't want them to sharpen their pencils while you're trying to teach. There should be like a specific time that it's okay for them to sharpen their pencil. So you got to think about all those things, and maybe it seems like, okay, that seems like very military, I don't know, drill sergeant thing of like being too specific. But if you're a teacher, you know that if you have little things, little routines, it will make your day better. And maybe some kids are not used to structure and they need that structure. They need to learn how to have a structured schedule and routines. All right, tip number 2 is be honest. Your students will know if you're lying, or I don't know, they're just super smart. I think it's really important to just like be honest with them, especially if you are not having the best day. And sometimes I'll let my students know, like if I'm having like a rough day, maybe because it was like a previous class, or I don't know, just having a hard day, just let them know like, hey, something just happened. I'm just having a rough time right now. I just want to let you guys know, that way you are aware that I'm just not having a good day. Let them know, because students can relate, because not everyone is gonna have a good day. No one's gonna have a perfect good day every single day. Like that's unrealistic. We're gonna have those bad days, and it's important to just be honest with your students. That way, like if you are having a bad day, they can take it easy. You know, they have like empathy for you and they'll understand. All right, tip number 3, I think this is number 3, is, what's tip number 3? Oh, be okay with making mistakes. Obviously, we're human. Everyone makes mistakes. You let your students know, like, hey, I made a mistake, and sometimes they're like, what? You're a teacher, you make mistakes? Let them know, like, yes, everyone makes mistakes and you learn from it. There will be some days, well, if you're like me, there'll be some days where you go home and you think about what you could have done, and I don't know, I often reflect a lot. In order to be the best, or you know, try to be the best for your students, you often reflect, and you're always thinking about what can you do better for your students. Even if I make mistakes, like I will learn from it, I'll think about it, and it'll make me think about what can I do better for the next class, or for the next time whenever I do a specific activity, or how I handle certain like behaviors. Sometimes I'm like, oh, I wish I didn't do that, or maybe I should have said that differently, or would have done that differently. But be okay with making mistakes, because especially if you're a first year teacher, even if you're a veteran teacher, you often make mistakes, and that's okay, as long as you know you learn from it, you do something better, and you move on. Try not to criticize yourself too much, because everyone is learning, we're trying our best, and just know that whatever that you're doing, whatever that you're trying to do for your students, it is enough, and you can make it better as long as you know, often reflect and just be okay with making mistakes. Let's go do some laundry. I have my little helper here. Down. Excuse me, sir. Excuse me, sir. Another tip is to take your personal days, okay? Don't feel guilty taking them. If you need to like schedule mental health days, personal days, do it. We have those for a reason. And I know a lot of teachers, they often don't take personal days because taking personal days seems like a lot more work, especially because if you have to make sub plans and create more work for students to do when they have a sub. Like for Brandon, my husband, he never took any personal days, and it's because like that stresses him out more because he has to create, you know, more work, create a sub plans, and that to him it's very overwhelming. And I know a lot of teachers might feel the same way, and I'm pretty sure that would make me feel overwhelmed too, make me not want to take personal days, even though I know it's super important. But trust me, you need to schedule personal days and take those mental health days, because even though we have those summer breaks, those winter breaks, spring breaks, sometimes you'll need that day to reset and refresh again. And I know it can feel weird, especially like thinking about, okay, I wonder what my students are doing. I'm like, I hope my students are okay with, and I hope the sub is okay, you know? But it's really important to take it easy, schedule that self-care, mental health day, personal day. We have those for a reason. And even if you don't take all your personal days, I hope you take at least one personal day in that school year, because you know, working with kids is a lot, and you know, just being around kids can be a lot, can really drain everything. And especially like if you have a lot of things to do, maybe you can take like a personal day and half of it you can like catch up with your work, whatever that may be. Even though I don't recommend you to do more work, especially on like your personal days, do what you need to do in order to catch up or take a breather, whatever. Take those personal days. You need to think about you, and just think about like a job is a job. You're replaceable, and your mental health is always first, in my opinion. All right, tip number 5, I don't even know. Don't forget to collaborate with your coworkers. It's so much easier if you just work with others and get ideas from other teachers, from your coworkers. And although I'm the only PE teacher in the building, I love when I get together with other PE teachers during professional development days, because I get so many new activities and it inspires me and gets me motivated again. And it just reminds me of how grateful I am for my PE teaching job. Definitely collaborate, try to work with your coworkers, your co-teaching partner as much as you can. If you can do less work, the better. Maybe like you can ask your coworker to do this part and then you can do this part. I don't know. Just get some ideas, work together. Try not to be afraid to ask for help. I know, I don't know, some people might feel like, oh, I can do everything. I'm okay just working by myself. I get that. Like sometimes I'm like that, but then at the same time, if you don't collaborate with your coworkers, then you might feel overwhelmed, especially if you're a classroom teacher. You need your coworkers, like you need your co-teachers or co-teaching partner or partners. Just anything that can take some things off your plate, the better, because if you have too much things on your to-do list, you're gonna feel overwhelmed and you're gonna burn out very easily. All right, tip number, is this 6? I think it's number 6, is to prioritize your to-do list if you have one. I'm the type of person that feels like I need to get everything done in one day, but in reality that is not the case, and you can't do that. I remember my cooperating teacher when I was student teaching, she did a 3 must do and 3 may do. She prioritized 3 must do's, like the 3 things that you must do that day, and then 3 may do's. So you may do them if you get those 3 must do's done. I like to write everything down. When I write everything down, I put the most important things on top. I know teachers, especially classroom teachers, you guys have endless to-dos and it feels like it's a never-ending thing. If you're a first-year teacher, take a deep breath, prioritize things that you really must do. And a lot of teachers, especially first-year teachers, they think about their classroom. They want to make their classroom look very pretty, all decked out, and get the theme going on. I used to think that way. If I was a classroom teacher, first-year teacher, I'd be so excited to get my first room, you know, and decorate it and do whatever I want with it and make it look nice and pretty, especially during meet the teacher night or open house, whatever it is that you do for your district or school. But the most important, in my opinion, is to figure out what activities you want your students to do that first week, especially first day. Look at your curriculum, your literacy curriculum, look at your math curriculum, whatever that your school district is using, and I would focus on that. Think of the 3 things that you really must do each day, and then if you don't get it done, that's okay. Don't beat yourself up because there's always the next day. Little by little, take it easy, take some breaks if you need to in between. Tip number 7. Compromise with your students, but don't be afraid to give them consequences, because a lot of students nowadays, I feel like they don't get consequences. First, you want to compromise, right? Compromise with your students. Here's an example. So with my students, they must do the warm-up in order to participate in the next activity. The warm-up is basically the skills that I want them to practice in order to go to the next thing, which is the game, the activity, the main activity. I remember 2 years ago, some 5th grade girls, they didn't want to do the warm-up, and I tried to compromise with them, like, okay, if you don't want to do the warm-up, then you can do some different exercises near the wall instead of like doing the warm-up, whatever. They still didn't want to do the exercises as well. I'm trying to compromise with them. They're still like, no, I don't want to do that. I don't feel like it. Like, okay, if you don't want to do the warm-up, you don't want to try the skill, and you don't want to exercise, then if you don't participate in a warm-up or do some warm-up activities, then you won't be able to play the main activity. They still didn't want to compromise with me, and it's important that you do compromise first, right? Try to talk it out with them, try to see what you can work out with them. But if they still don't want to do what you want them to do, then give them a consequence. Some teachers might feel like it's unfair, but to me, these kids need them consequences, okay? They stood by the wall, and then once we did the activity, they came to me like, oh, we want to play now. And I told them like, oh, no, because you didn't want to do the warm-up. We try to compromise what you can do instead of the warm-up, and you still didn't want to do it. And I told you already that if you don't do any of the warm-up or try to do anything, exercise or something, then you won't be able to play the main activity. And they got so upset at me, but I feel like it's unfair if all the kids are doing the warm-up and they don't, and then they end up wanting to play the main activity because it looks fun, because it is fun. So they ended up not doing the activity. I just had them walk around and do laps during the main activity, because again, if you don't follow my expectations and like if you don't even want to try to compromise with me, there's going to be consequences, and I'm sorry, you won't be able to play the main activity. Ever since that, they started doing the warm-up, because that was the first and last time that they did that. And I don't know, it's important that kids get consequences, because I need them to know that kids can't always get what they want when they want it. And I think that's a problem a lot nowadays with the younger kids now. I feel like a lot of kids don't get the consequences and they get away with whatever that they want. That's not gonna fly with me. So it's important that you do try to compromise first. And there will be students, you know, I get it, like some students are just not in the mood and they just don't want to do anything. The first thing that I ask, like, are you okay? Are you hungry? Are you tired? Just try to understand them first. Sometimes they just don't want to do it because they don't want to do it because they don't like the activity. But I'm like, I'm sorry, like life doesn't work that way. That's just my opinion. That's just like how I think. Think about that first. You need to compromise with your students, and if they're still not following directions and not following your expectations, your rules or routines, stay consistent. And I definitely believe in consequences, and that, you know, because life, there are consequences. I'm going on a tangent on this because I feel like with consequences, kids will really think about it and be like, oh, I did not like that experience. I won't do that again for the next time. And then usually it doesn't happen the next time. All right, last tip. And I mentioned this tip before in a previous like teaching tip video, but it is really important to build that relationship with your students. I said this before and I'll say it again, because if you don't build that relationship with your students, they're not going to care about you. So why would they listen to somebody who, you know, they don't really care? Make that connection. Ask them questions about their home life, like, you know, do you have any siblings? Like, what'd you do this summer? How's your weekend? When you ask those questions, then you remember small things about them, like maybe like my favorite color, or like, let's say last weekend they said they are gonna go to their grandma's house or something like that. And then the next week when you see them, they're like, oh, how was visiting your grandma's house, you know? Because they're like, oh wow, she remembered, or wow, they remembered. I think it's important to build that connection, build that relationship with your students. That way it would just make your teaching a lot better. When I say better, it's just better when, like, you know, students are listening. Once they get to know you, once they feel like you care about them and they care about you, they will want to listen to you. They will want to impress you and want you to feel like you're proud of them, which you are, because they grow so fast. And it's always interesting to see, especially with my kindergartners, like in the beginning of the year towards the end, and see how much their skills have improved. Build that connection, and hopefully you have a great school year. Let me know if you have any questions. My email is always available, so I always reply super fast. So if you have any questions relating to PE, college, I don't know, just anything, then I'll try to help you as much as I can. Thank you guys for watching. Please don't forget to subscribe and like this video, and I will see you next time.